This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah.
Are we recording?
Yes.
All right. Would you please join me in a pledge to our flag? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Next thing on the agenda is opportunity for public comment.
Yeah, it's
Anyone
recording.
here who would like to make a public comment?
We have several members online and there's no one signed in to make public comment.
All right, then move on to action item number 3, approval minutes, approved minutes for October 16th, 2024 meeting. Any discussion on that? Motion approved and seconded. All those. David, second. Motion approved and second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item number 4, discussion action item regarding approval of 2024-25 UPWP amendment number 1. Uryan?
All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome back. First meeting of the year. Off for a couple months. What you have in front of you, of course, is a discussion and action item. This is a request to amend our Unified Planning Work Program, which is the internal budget that the MPO staff work off of. We have noticed that we weren't using some funds that we had allocated in certain areas. And in an effort to be able to do more as staff, we're requesting policy board consider adopting this amendment, which will remove $50,000 from task 5. $150,000 from task 5, which is our special studies task. We don't have any tasks currently underway that are using these funds, and move those into our administration and our MTP, our planning activities. We also are requesting to move funding for the administration part. We're asking to move $50,000 for website update, as well as to allow staff to look into and procure a project tracker to make. This will allow for staff as well as community members, project sponsors, not community members, but project sponsors to go in and input project information in the project tracker. We'll be able to see where the project is from start to finish. It'll provide more transparency to the policy board and the TAC. And then it will allow for staff to more easily transfer information that's in those projects to the TIP, STIP during those occurrences when we need to do that. Right now, everything is done cut and paste. We're manually typing things in, so as you can imagine, we're all humans. Thank goodness I don't have to do any of that, but there are still occasionally errors that happen in transferring that information. We wouldn't have to deal with any of that. So this task is just to make those amendments to our current UPWP. There will be another UPWP for the next cycle coming before you guys, probably starting in May. We'll start having those conversations on what the next 2-year UPWP looks like. So I don't anticipate any additional amendments to this current UPWP following this one.
So basically our staff are picking up slack. We don't have to pay consultants.
Correct.
Oh, thank you. Good job. Appreciate it. Any discussion on this? Motion to accept it?
Yeah, I have a question on the funding for task 1. How's that? I know it's stated there that you're putting it on the specific tasks. Does that all balance out with where you're shifting funds around from?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
There's no change in the overall budget, but yeah, we basically took from task 5 and allocated it to our subtasks appropriately.
So it should have just been $150,000 that came from task 5 and it was reallocated within task 1.
Correct.
And these are all appropriations for the grant money we got. It's all legal.
So this, the public participation salary, what box on page 17? So tracking. It's got 15,000 for public participation salary and 35,000 for training and travel budget. Is that money going into or coming out?
That's going into. We underestimated our budgets our previous UPWP because, COVID, we were coming off of that. There wasn't a lot of training and activities happening, so we've had to increase those dollars. And the public participation salary, that specifically is just to increase so that as our staff work on projects, they allocate certain amounts of time to those buckets. This will allow Anita and any other staff to allocate additional time to public planning or public participation efforts.
Any questions, comments? Entertain a motion?
I'm just checking the math on the totals you have under transportation planning funds. You lined out 849, 437 to 919, 435. Is that supposed to be $150,000 delta there, or is that?
Yep. Thank you for catching that. That's just a typo. Should be,
That's why I was confused. I was seeing math.
it should be 999,000 instead of 919.
Texas.
You're not Maggie, are you? Okay, just checking.
I'd make a motion that we approve the amendment as presented with the math correction on that one section.
Second.
Motion by David, who's the second? Thank you, Ryan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item number 5, discussion and action item regarding approval of resolution 2025-01 for the fiscal year 22 annual project listing. Okay.
This is normally a resolution that we have in the beginning part of the year. Every year, we haven't had it for the past couple years. The APL, annual project listing, is something that's required legislation that all NPOs submit. TxDOT usually has sent us what they have in their system and asked us to confirm it and add any information that's missing. A couple years ago, they noticed that there were some issues, some data errors in the reports that they were sending to all NPOs. And so they've been working through those the past 12 to 18 months, I think, and have resolved a lot of those, and as such are bringing this fiscal year 22 report back to us to reapprove, for Baltimore to reapprove, so they can submit that to FHWA. I expect that in the coming months, we'll get similar reports for FY23 and FY24, which just finished. I think those will come separately, but we haven't, trying to get through this process first. So that's what this item's for. There's a resolution saying approve APL for FY22.
We're approving the resolution we approved in 22 in the TxDOT directive.
There was a previous resolution about 18 months ago, and just to keep it fresh, since the reporting process has changed a little bit, wanted to be in compliance.
Motion to accept. Ryan, opposed. Mayor Moore puts a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item number 6, regarding approval of the Action Transportation Advisory Committee, ATAC. This is Anita.
Okay, sure. Thank y'all for allowing me to share. This is Previously, we had the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee, and it was established in 2016. In 2019 and 2021, there were revisions and amendments made to those bylaws, and in early 2024, staff started looking at the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee bylaws, and we proposed some recommendations. If you could please go to the next slide. Primarily, the recommendations that we were looking at were the type of member representatives that we had. And if you look at this table to the far right, what you're looking at is it's comparing the key provisions of the bylaws for 2021 to the details recorded on BPAC sign-in sheets. So we've decided, and we really think it's in the best interest of our region if we look forward and rewrite or expand the scope of our membership to accurately reflect what is happening inside of the committee, which is we have bicycle enthusiast, walking enthusiast, equestrian enthusiast, increasing the municipalities from 5 to 6, including a county government representative, and as well as in the past we have not had public transit representation. We just had a new member join us in December, and then also expanding to other active transportation interests like trail enthusiasts, tourism boards. There's a lot of conversation happening around bicycle tourism, Chamber of Commerce, running events and paddlecrafts. And one of the primary reasons that we're looking at changing the name from bicycle pedestrian to active transportation is that active transportation calls for recommending improving infrastructure for biking, walking, rolling, and other modes of transportation that include non-motorized but electric, like scooters and e-bikes, and as well as equestrian. And then the middle table over to the left, I look back at the last, since 2023, and those are individuals or members of our community that have consistently participated in the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee that did not have an active voting role. So it goes to show that the citizens in our community, they're investing their time, talent, and resources to come and be a part of what is happening in our community as it relates to bicycle and pedestrian activities. If you could please, are there any questions on this slide here, y'all? If you could please go to the next slide.
How many total members are you proposing?
The membership will remain the same at 20.
Okay.
It's just rearranging where the members will fall.
Okay.
Really opening it up to become really more, it's going to be leveled out between municipalities and governing bodies at 10 and members of the public at 10. And recommending the name change from Bicycle Pedestrian to Active Transportation Advisory Committee. Once again, it reflects a broader purpose and expanding our scope to more individuals. And once again, re-emphasizing including one equestrian, a paddlecraft, and other active transportation groups. And so we are looking to the policy board to approve our new bylaws, and you did receive a copy of those bylaws in the email that was sent.
What is the quorum requirement for this committee?
It'll be 50% plus one active member. So if we only have 10 active members, it'll be 50% of that.
So
50%
you say active members, so just because you have 20 spots doesn't mean you'll have 20 people on the committee.
That's correct, because right now we have some vacancies. There's some municipality vacancies that are happening, and so those do not count against our work.
Does it state that in the bylaws for how you form that majority then?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I guess I have a question about that because it specifically says 50% plus one of the voting membership. Voting membership, if I understand right, is the entire list, whether they're appointed or active or not.
that correct? Does the vacancy not count towards your form
But
requirement?
from my understanding, and maybe we need to clarify language, that the vacancies do not count against our quorum. It's only those that are engaged and have representation. So I can go back and look at the verbiage to make sure that that does not count against us. That was my intention when we revised these.
It's just been my experience with boards like this, that oftentimes getting a quorum can be difficult. You can expand that and require a larger group of people to make quorum. You may have difficulty having a committee at all.
Right, and one of the things is that there's 20 members right now. We're not increasing the membership, we're just redistributing the type of members that we're seeking and making it more of a public interest group. But I can go back and look at that to make sure, because that's one of the things that we don't want to do, is we don't want to stifle our quorum, because we've got some great momentum. And I just want to, Gary McKay, he's our chair, and he's a bringer. Every meeting, he's bringing new people that are really interested in what's happening. So we can go back and make sure that that does not stifle any of our growth or the momentum that we have going.
Thank you, Gary, and thank you for being here today for the presentation.
Thanks for having me.
Any other questions, comments?
One thing that Gary's helped with is giving the members of that committee a reason to participate in the committee. We all love to sit around and have good ideas to solve problems, but in the transportation world, you can't fund it. All you're doing is moving hot air around. So we work to strengthen their participation in the TAC scoring criteria when private calls come through. Now, last time we put it to the committee, sent them the spreadsheet, 2 members returned the score sheet. So we have work to do. Those 2 members have to be sitting in this room. So there's work to be done, but give them a reason, show that their participation does influence the outcomes. That's what we're working towards. So if you know someone wants to participate, let them know that we're working to make sure that their time is not wasted.
I would just like to clarify, on the bylaws, I'm looking under Article 3, vacancies. Vacancies are defined as positions on the ATAC that are not filled. Vacancies on the ATAC will not count against the quorum. So that should answer that question.
Who appoints the vacancies for those, all the 20 individuals?
The cities can appoint, municipalities can appoint, the county. However, we're also open to citizen representatives. If they're interested and they fit into one of those categories, they can write a letter to us, and then to the ATAC committee, and then we'll vote on it on our agenda, and then we move it up to TAC and the policy board for the final approval, and that is written inside of the minutes. I mean, the bylaws.
What's the criteria if you have to replace somebody? It's the meeting twice in a row, or is it?
I think it's 3.
I can, meeting, it's 3, but also, it's 3, but if they're not engaging in our efforts, then I have to take it to Uryan, and he'll make the final determination if we can.
Because you always want to get people that want to help, but I mean,
Right.
if somebody's just, they can't come, or they're just too busy, it hurts you for your forum to be able to hold it. So you just want to make sure you got people to be able to.
That's correct, sir. And I'm very passionate about this committee, and I'm watching all the attendance, I'm watching the engagement, and that was one of the reasons that we elevated, if someone is not actively engaging in our committee, then that would go to Uryan, and I would, we don't have a specific process, but I would write them an email sharing the information that they have not attended, they have not let us know that their intentions of not to attend. And we're a big region, and so we've even accounted for attendance by attending with your camera turned on. So we're broadening that, so you don't have to be present to be an active voting member of this committee. You can have your camera turned on and engage with us.
That's great. I mean, because we've all been on boards and committees, it's very frustrating when you can't do it. People take their time to come in or dedicate that block of time, and you have to cancel the meeting after everybody showed up, you don't have to.
Yes.
All
Fortunately enough, that has not happened to us yet. And that's, I really, the passion that Jason and Gary bring to the table, they have really, been forward thinkers and, forward movers and shakers and bringers. So hopefully that will continue. And I don't see why it would not with the direction that we're going.
This is an action item, does require this board's approval for the bylaw changes and membership changes as well. Entertain a motion. Ryan moves, Jason second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item number 7, discussion item only. We have a presenter from TxDOT, Ms. Mays. Right there.
Right here. She's right here.
Thank you for coming.
No, thank you. Good morning, and thank you, Ryan, for the invitation to be here. And it's an honor, Chair and board members, to be here and present on what we're doing at the state level. Stan and his folks represent this region very well at the district level. So I'm going to give you it's a lot of information, but I'll try to go quick. But stop me if you have any questions on what I'll present today. I am in Austin and serve in executive leadership position. I oversee pretty much all of the planning within TxDOT, and then all the moves, and I'll talk a little bit about it. So this is what I'll walk you through today. Definitely give you a quick overview of TxDOT, and then a slew of multimodal transportation plans, and then a little bit on funding, and then of course our continued partnerships with the MPOs throughout the state. So quickly, this is TxDOT today. We are, like you all, overseen by a board. We're overseen, ours is called the Texas Transportation Commission, a 5-member board. They meet once a month. They're meeting next week, and they help make a lot of decisions. These members are appointed by the governor. Today, actually, we have a little over, 12,800 employees at TxDOT. We're guided by 25 districts and 34 divisions that cover a gamut of things from engineering, like construction, design, bridge, and then others like planning and modal programs. Organizational-wise, this is how TxDOT looks like, and it's you get the slides. But I wanted to just highlight that yes, we got the commission, we got our executive director, and then our executive director has 2 deputies, including the chief engineer, and then we fall underneath that, and I'm on the left side, where all my divisions are right there. In terms of our system, not really something that probably most of you already know. We have a very extensive network, in Texas. And then, of course, bridges. We have the most bridges. If you add 3 states behind us, we'll still be more than them in terms of the number of bridges we have. So fairly extensive. It keeps Stan and others very busy throughout the state, keeping up with the system. But at the same time, we're not just about roads and bridges. We also have aviation. We look at over 200. I think now it's 289. General aviation airports, and I know in this region you do have that as well, and maritime, and I'll talk a little bit about that. Public transportation, we'll talk about a little bit about that. Back and Pet and Anita, thank you so much. We'll talk about the advisory committee, because we do have actually one at the statewide level, and I'll mention some of the things we're doing when it comes to active transportation. So really great to see that you guys are focusing on that as well. And then rail, we have a very extensive rail network. Primarily freight rail, but we also have a passenger rail in Texas. So in terms of, again, you guys know this, but when it comes to population, when you look at this, between 2022 and 2023, we added over 473 Texans, 1.6% increase, compared to the national, where they only added 0.5% increase, and that really translates to over 1,200 Texans, new Texans per day, which is just staggering. I know you guys are seeing that here with the growth in the region, but statewide, it's just, kind of mind blowing. Everywhere around the state you go, it's just a lot of work. And then in terms of really what I do, I mentioned that, I oversee 5 different divisions, and I walk through those transportation planning and programming, where the MPO coordination and efforts really tie into that. And then, aviation division that I mentioned earlier, a lot of it, they oversee the general aviation airports. They disperse both federal and state funds to those airports. Maritime division works with all the Texas seaports. Again, a lot of that is dispersing, state funds primarily, but also working with the districts within those, Gulf Coast ports on connectivity issues, et cetera. Public transportation division is also a division within TxDOT. Again, they funnel a lot of federal funds, state funds, but right now they're, really ramping up the planning efforts, and I'll talk about 2 plans that they're working on right now. The rail division primarily focus on freight rail, but also they, look at when you hear about high-speed rail, passenger rail, they do that as well, and then just kind of summarizing some of the functions they have without going into detail. So that's in a nutshell what my role is and what I oversee within the department. But a big part of what the function of all of these divisions are is to really support project development and project delivery, working with the districts, working with all the other engineering divisions. So in terms of really kind of the bread and butter of, how we do planning at TxDOT and how we integrate with MPOs and others. So this is really when I got this position about 2 years ago. My leadership executive director asked me, says, Caroline, can you just summarize this in 1 page? And this is what we try to do. And I'll walk you through this a little bit. You see the UTP, which is our, 10-year program, but also the STIP, which the MPOs provide the tip that goes into the STIP. So that's kind of, at the end of the day, everything we do funnel to that. On the right-hand side is our agency strategic plan. And then our signature document is Connecting Texas 2050, which is our statewide long-range plan. You guys know it as MTP. And then within that, we have really 2 arms of what we do, whether TxDOT, MPOs, or any transportation agency in this country, in this world, you move people and you move goods. So to do that, we have one umbrella that looks at, plans that, move people. And right now, we're in the process of developing the first ever statewide active transportation plan. And then the first time ever, we're developing a statewide transit plan. On the goods movement side, we've actually done a fairly good job where we have developed the freight mobility plan. We have a truck parking plan. We have a freight network looking necessarily at technology, but also we do have a port mission plan. So those are very specific to those modes. Then in the middle, we have what we call cross-cutting plans that look at both moving people and goods. And there you're going to see, things like statewide rail plan, which looks at both passenger rail and freight rail. And then you look at, you see, let's say the Texas-Mexico border, that looks at both people and goods. And then underneath that, and I was really pleased with, like I mentioned, what Anita mentioned about the advisory committee. A lot of our work is done through advisory committees, and I appreciate, I think it was Mayor that mentioned, maybe Jason, that you really have to show people that them participating in this committee's influence decisions. And I can tell you, we have been very successful with that, with our advisory committees, to influence what we do as TxDOT, whether it's how we, prioritize projects or how we, make decisions about certain things, but also bringing policy, decisions. For instance, I'll just tell you about the Freight Advisory Committee. Years ago, they helped us actually come up with a bridge vertical clearance policy. that if your building, Stan is going to build a new bridge on I-35, it has to be 18 and a half feet. If he can't do that, then he needs to figure out an alternate route. So that actually became a policy within TxDOT that it exists today. And that was really born out of an advisory committee recommendation that we're using today. And then there's many, many others. So I just wanted to underscore advisory committees, stakeholder engagement is really, really critical to all the work that we do. And you can see we have all kinds of, some are appointed by the legislators, some by statute, some is just, again, ad hoc. So quickly, when you look at, we have a lot of plans, and I'll start with the first one, which is the long range plan. And really, the long range plan we just adopted this last year. It's just like an MTP, but it's just at the statewide level. So that's really what it is. But the biggest thing with this is that it really helps guide, our investments to meet future needs. It helps us look at demographics, helps us look at big picture funding needs, trends, etc. And this is really, one document that is very instrumental in what we do. I mentioned the statewide multimodal transit plan. We're a little bit behind here. That this is the first time as TxDOT, as state of Texas, really developing a statewide transit plan. Most states like Maryland and others do have a statewide transit plan. And we're hoping that this will really be a cornerstone of a plan that starts to help us really make a business case for transit. Why transit is important, why transit needs to be part of the toolbox for moving people, for facilitating economic development throughout the state so that we can get a lot of Texans, no matter where you live, no matter what mode of transportation you want to take, that some, whatever it's available, whether you want to take transit, you want to walk, you want to bike, you want to drive your car, you want to take a train, that is available. So that's the goal for this plan. And we have here that will be presented in late 2024, but it's actually 2025. So we'll correct that. Then the second plan we're developing, again, this is one that also first time we're developing a statewide active transportation plan. We've been doing a lot of work in this area with districts. We've developed several district bike ped plans, but this is again the first time we're doing a statewide. And one of the reasons we do statewide plans is to help our commission make policy decisions at the statewide level. So that's really a big part of it. We've seen the plans that has helped, but also it helps us to identify funding needs statewide as well. So again, this one too, we're working on it, and it should be completed by sometimes this summer, actually. Then a huge plan for us, which looks specifically at moving goods, is the Texas Freight Mobility Plan. We've been developing the plan, I think we're in version 3 or 4, and really looks at all the modes, from rail, highway, ports, aviation, air cargo, and this plan has really played a huge role in how we make decisions also in funding. Like for instance, some of the corridors like I-35 is a huge freight corridor, so the plan really has helped justify investments in corridors like I-35, the I-10s, and many, many corridors throughout the state because of the role they play in terms of moving goods and facilitating economic competitiveness of the state of Texas. So this has been really a good signature plan. The commission pays a lot of attention to it. Another signature plan that we developed in 2021 is the Texas-Mexico Border Transportation Master Plan. Why does this matter? It really articulates that Texas and Mexico are kind of tied in the hip. When you really look at trade, you look at our existence as Texas, cross-border trade is huge. 80% of U.S.-Mexico trade or stuff that moves between U.S. and Texas and U.S. and Mexico, 80% of that crosses through Texas. So a huge amount of not just goods being traded, but also economic impact. Since COVID, a lot has changed. The border is much more critical and important today with a lot of manufacturing moving back to North America, in Mexico, but also Texas. I think you guys, probably know by now the Teslas. 3 years ago, we didn't have Tesla in Austin. Samsung was small operations in Taylor, and now they're expanding into billions of dollars. TI in Dallas is expanding. So you're seeing a lot of kind of this manufacturing renaissance, and Texas is benefiting from that because of our proximity to Mexico. Because a lot of the operations are both in Mexico and the U.S., so cross-border is a huge issue. For us. We focus a lot on that, working with both sides of the border, but also the communities along the border that own the border crossings. The border crossings are not owned by the state, they're owned by the local government within the border region. So we do work with each and every one of them. We have 28 border crossings. I mentioned aviation, a critical component of our transportation system. Here, we primarily TxDOT focuses on general aviation, but I can tell you commercial aviation is part of Texas's success story in terms of us being able to attract economic development because of our general aviation airports, but also because of our commercial aviation airports. General aviation is really important to parts of Texas that really is difficult to get to. I'll give you an example. You go to Presidio, Texas. It's, without having a general aviation in Presidio, you can't really get there. You fly to El Paso, drive another 3 hours, or you fly to Midland, you drive, another 2.5 hours. So it just, places like that, general aviation becomes really critical in terms of getting products there, but getting needed medical supplies to those communities, but also creating economic development. So a huge part of what we do that's a little bit silent. A lot of times people are like, oh, we didn't know TxDOT had an aviation division, but I'm like, yes, we do. The statewide rail plan is another one, although this is federally mandated, but we developed this plan every few years, and it looks at both passenger, but also it looks at freight rail. We're one of the big freight rail states in the country. We have more lane miles of rail tracks than any state has. And some of the challenges we have on the rail side is also we have a lot of agro road crossings. We have over 10,000 agro road crossings across the state. And recently we've seen a lot of stuff on the news. We had, derailment, we've had, a child get killed crossing the rail tracks. So it's generated a lot of interest from the legislators, and we're hoping or expecting that we may see a bill that provides funding specifically to address agro road crossing throughout the state. So that's going to be a huge thing. We've not had any funding from the legislators when it comes to rail, but I think we may be seeing the first time ever the state putting money into TxDOT to help address agro road crossing throughout the state. The port supports a huge part of, again, Texas's economic competitiveness. We have, 20 ports, with Houston being one of, the largest container ports in the nation. And the port mission plan, again, helps us to identify the needs of the Texas ports, both inside the gates and outside of the gates. And the last session, the legislators actually gave us over almost $700 million, and those funds, have gone to the ports and both inside the gate and outside the gate projects, and looking forward to hopefully the legislators providing additional funding to go to address Texas port issues. The biggest issues there is really connectivity. If you all remember during COVID, when everyone was like, oh yeah, the ports are congested, the challenge was they couldn't get the containers off the lot. So you get the containers off the ship and they're sitting right there in the lot inside the port. They cannot offload any ships because they didn't have enough truck drivers. The warehousing didn't have workers, so a lot of it was a domino effect. It wasn't just that the ports couldn't handle it. They couldn't get all of those containers out. We do a lot of corridor studies. We're probably getting ready, Ryan and Stan, on kind of an I-35 refresh. So every few years, we look at different corridors. I-35, we did it probably 2012, but as a time for a refresher. We do this again to help support project development, but also help prioritize the needs on those corridors. So a key part of what the team within TPP does. This is just to show you some of the other plans. Again, we do a lot of plans. Right now we're finishing a statewide resiliency plan, but also developing just a very specific resiliency plan. A lot on the highway side and the technology side. We're doing a lot of work when it comes to technology, emerging technologies. One thing I didn't include here, we recently completed AI strategic plan. So, TxDOT is probably one of the first state DOTs to even do an AI strategic plan. And AI really impacts both our operations internally, but also on the transportation system. The signs you see out there, those could be generated by AI, providing all of the analytics behind that. So a lot of other plans that we do. And I know this is probably one of the ones that you guys are most interested in. This is the Unified Transportation Program. It's our 10-year Unified Transportation Program that really provides us with a look at how much funding we have, statewide, to be able to address the needs throughout the state. So when you look at this, the trend from 2015 to 2025, certainly we've seen growth, significant growth in the funding we get. A lot of people around the country are kind of like envious of Texas. They're like, wow, how you have $100 billion program? When you look at our population, even with that much money, it's still not enough to address all the issues. And we may be going into a flattening of that curve come 2026 UTP based on what our controller numbers, the revenue estimates that he's put out, I think, last week. So we may see a tapering of that curve, but I don't think it's a big dip.
Quick question.
Yes.
On those last two, tying those together, I-35 refresh and the funding.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the grand proposal of 48 lanes or something through our area? It may not be 48, but it's closer than it is anyway. But do you have any idea, like, is that pause? I mean, I don't know if you know any details.
No, I've not heard about a grant proposal for 48 lanes.
Well, 18. More than Austin.
Yeah, but I can tell you that the vision commission I've had for I-35 since 2015 is from Rio Grande to Red River, 6-lane divided minimum. That's been the vision of the commission, okay? Rio Grande to Red River, 6-lane minimum. And of course, that's, some areas are more than that, and right now, I'm not sure anywhere on I-35 justified that many 18 lanes. And even if it did, we may not be able to build it because of right-of-way issues, costs, et cetera. So, Stan?
Mayor's talking about this section here from Delta to Temple, which will be a co-located section with future I-14.
Yeah.
It's provided express lanes for I-35, Rio Grande to Red River.
Yeah.
The exit Temple development area, but then weaving lanes on the outside of that, that will also be I-14.
Yeah.
And then frontage roads as well, it totals up to 16 or 14 main lanes. 14 main lanes.
Plus 4.
Plus the frontage roads. So it's quite a cross section.
Yeah.
But I think to your original question, what was your original question?
Well, the original question is, we've got the tension with the funding and the plan, and so I just was curious.
The plan is there. I think funding is probably the biggest question today, but it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're working in the schematic phase now to develop where the actual buying of right of way and things like that will be. So, very early in the process. It handles two things. It provides a co-location of I-14 and I-35, but at the same time, it improves some of the operational issues that we're having today. And the ultimate plan is going to be phased in pending funding, so there will be development of the project as we move along. But we wanted to buy the right-of-way footprint up front, so we don't have to come back in 20 years and buy more right-of-way. So that's the ultimate plan.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Stan, for that. Yeah, again,
While you're still on the funding slide,
Yeah.
we had, there's a good presentation on TxDOT's LAR for this session this time. I mean, the TxDOT's requested, I think, around $41 billion for the next biennium, and how that breaks down into project funding, at least for the next biennium. What's the legislative ask for TxDOT?
Yeah, we have a whole presentation on the LAR, which is different. We have, the LAR is above and beyond what is appropriated to us as TxDOT in our regular budget, so that's above and beyond. So I mentioned the rail program, that's an LAR. We were asking for $175 million for Agri Road crossing, and we're asking for $25 million for shoreline railroad. So that would be like an addition to what we generally get appropriated to us. But we do have a presentation, and our state and legislative affairs would be happy to come and present or even provide that information if you know, the board would like.
Yeah, I was just trying to tie, I mean,
Yes.
what I've read or heard, seen,
Yeah.
been told about TxDOT's budget requests.
Yeah.
Overall budget, and then exceptional item requests, and then drill that down to, okay, projects in this area. How does that tie from the 40 billion action for the next biennium to the, you know, what's that number? It's almost 315 new TxDOT employees scattered across, or at least it's gas.
Yeah.
Across districts across the state.
Yeah.
Again, just trying to tie the current budget request to current projects, especially surface road projects.
Yeah, so let me get to this slide. It may answer some of your questions, but not to the project level. So when you look at our funding since 2015, this is what has come to the Waco district. And you can see from 2015 up to now, you've seen a 600% increase between that time where you're at, you know, $2.3 billion for the Waco district. Of TxDOT. So that's kind of how that breaks down. I had a slide on some of the projects, but I think I hit it, but it's in the presentation on some of the projects that is in this region. So that's kind of how this pans out. Does that kind of answer some of the questions?
Yeah, I was just looking to drill down.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe Stan, just on the additional employees request, 15 or so. How many of those would come to the Waco district? If
Typically, those prorated, we'd probably be looking at picking up 6 or 8.
Yeah.
We got a similar request last legislative session.
Yeah.
So we have 360 today, so.
And where would they be assigned?
Well, sometimes they tell us where they, what types of
Yeah.
titles they need to be. Last
Yes.
time they didn't. What I do is right now I'm trying to beef up my maintenance side of my house. So some of my smaller little sections, not Bell County's not one. But sometimes we have a hard time getting staff. So I'm trying to beef up those right now. And other ones go on I-35 project management. We do most of our I-35 work contracts. Both maintenance and construction.
Yeah, and there's a formula once, you know, we get approved, then there's a formula that central office decides on the districts and the request, the districts make their request, and then there's a whole team of people that sit down and figure out, okay, we didn't get 315, but we got 250. So now how do we deal with that between the different districts? And then, you know, some of the right now we're not doing it, but in the past we will have kind of advance, you know, let's say Stan says, okay, I absolutely need 2 people, what we call advanced FT allocation. Stan will get that, he can go on higher, and then later on we kind of close that loop, that gap. So, yeah. Any questions here? You guys have done very well on 600%. So, and then lastly, just wanted to touch on quickly on the MPO partnership. Again, I use part of my role is really to help facilitate, build and nurture the relationship between TxDOT and the MPOs. We had a meeting, like Yeah, where all the MPOs came to TxDOT and met with all the senior leadership. It was a really great meeting, that first meeting we had in many, many years to really talk about some of the key issues, that we MPOs on TxDOT can work on. So as you see here, really some of the key elements is how can we work together to maximize bringing federal funds to Texas, whether it's through the MPOs, whether it's through TxDOT, that's the bottom line. We have to get federal funds, otherwise other states would be quick to go and grab it. So we want to make sure that everything that should come to Texas, we bring it here, and we can only do that by working together. And then developing plans and maintaining the programs. The STIP that I mentioned earlier, we can't do that without the MPOs developing their tips and submitting those. The MTPs are very important. We have some MPOs that have non-attainment areas. If they go out of in a lapse or the MTP lapse, we cannot deliver projects in those regions. So we have to, as TxDOT, we have to work with all, our 25 MPOs to really ensure that we're delivering on the programs that we do have throughout the state. And then this is some of the, kind of the family of things that we work on and collaborate with MPOs. You guys will have CMAC, which is congestion management, but UPWP, Ryan talked about earlier, that's also part of using the planning funds and the MPOs doing their work. I talked a lot about the TIP. And then the UTP, a lot of what feeds the UTP is really the work that the MPOs do. And then there's a lot of other things that we do work with the MPOs on. I mentioned the long range plan, a huge part of the work that we have within TxDOT, within TPP. We have a whole group that is MPO planning group to really ensure that we're continuing to coordinate with the MPOs on those. And then this is some of the, really the initiatives we have, kind of refreshing our MPO efforts within the department. I think it was a little bit dormant for a while, but now it's kind of being resuscitated to really focus on what are some of the key things we need to be working with the MPOs, and supporting the MPOs, but also really making sure that we're focusing on the right things. So this are a couple of the things that we're really working on and focusing on that. My team, the MPO group, attend temple meetings and coordination meetings as well. So I think we're seeing kind of, a good turnaround in really focusing and being purposeful in our engagement with the MPOs. Ryan told me this morning that, we have had somebody from central office come and present. I'm like, how? In 7 years. So we need to change that to ensure that we're coming to you all and understand and many of the districts do, sit on the policy boards and they're very active. But I think, continuing to ensure that we have collaboration with central office is also important. So final slide here. Definitely our goal is, in terms of the planning efforts to ensure that really we're focusing on two things. How do we move people and how do we move goods across the state of Texas? That's the two main goals. If anything, I leave you all today is at the end of the day, the role of MPOs, TxDOT, and anybody when it comes to transportation, how do we move people and goods efficiently throughout the state so people can have economic opportunities, access to jobs, access to all the services that they have, but also businesses thriving. Businesses come here because they can move products, they can bring things in, they could take it to market. That's really the goal. That's why they call it the Texas miracle, is these companies are coming here because they can do that. They can bring their stuff through the ports. Energy can be moved from West Texas to Corpus Christi and to the world. Border can be able to move things. So that's really kind of the goal, really. And for us is how do we then advance project development at the district level and execute on those projects. So really in a nutshell, that's what we're focusing on and really through the planning efforts that we have within TxDOT. So Ryan, thank you so much. I know it took a little bit more time.
That's fine. Thank you for coming. Any questions for Caroline?
Brandon?
Carolyn, I just want to thank you for your leadership and your accessibility across the state. When I look at the scope that you're responsible for, it is incredible. We have one of the strongest economies in the world. You've shared your vision at APTA, SWATA, TTI. This woman is everywhere, very accessible and willing to share her personal time. I love your vision. I can tell you that over the past, since you've taken over, the level of discussion about multimodal transportation, not just transit, but all forms of transit, has elevated to a level that I've not seen in the state. The vision and putting together a first ever statewide multimodal plan, I think is exceptional. And Hill Country Transit District is part of a steering committee that's been providing input to that plan over the past year. And I'm really pleased with the outcome. So thank you very much for being here today, but more importantly, for all of the personal time and professional time you take to make our state better.
No, thank you for the kind words, but it's also people like you that really provide the feedback and the information, and then it gets shared with the leadership, like the transit plan. I think, like you said, when people really see the report and see what has come out of it, what my hope is it will intrigue people, but it will make people question, why haven't we done anything? Why aren't we bolder? We need to be bold as Texans. Okay, we need to lead as Texans. We always say we do. We need to be the innovators, can-do spirit that we've always done. So that's what I think a lot of what, my wish and dream is, that we do that as a state. Take bold decisions, but also take risk. Okay? Take risk in areas that we traditionally not done. And if we're going to stay competitive, we need every mode of transportation. We have 30.5 million people today as we speak, and the projections are even greater. So how do we get to do that is really thinking about 10, 15 years from now, how many more lanes is that going to add in I-35, and how much is it going to cost? Or are there other options? That doesn't take away from 35. It actually complements. That's the mindset that we need to start thinking about. What are other alternatives that complements and supports and helps us as a state be able to stay more competitive, that we're not choked by congestion and companies move out, because it's too costly for them. So I appreciate that, and I thank you all really for continuing to be part of that dialogue and representing at the local level on all levels.
Everything's bigger in Texas. It looks like it's going to keep getting even bigger. And we're not short any opinions here, so we'll give you all the input we can. Thank you for what you do. Item number 8, discussion item regarding the fiscal year 2024 annual performance and expenditure report. McGill.
Right, this is similar to the APER item from a couple items ago, except it's with our expenditures, and it's a yearly report we submit to TxDOT on how we spent the money that was budgeted and approved in our UPWP. I believe there was a copy sent out. There's one before it's almost finalized. We're working on one last budget piece with Hill Country, just getting some accurate numbers, and then TxDOT will be able to approve that. If there are any questions, happy to answer those.
No questions. Item number 9, discussion item regarding the fiscal year 2025 safety performance targets for KTMPO. Callie on this one.
Callie's not here today, so I'll take this one. It's been a year since we last talked about safety, and I know last year there was a lot of discussions and work that we put into moving from adopting the statewide targets to more regional targets and get an accurate picture of where we're at as an MPO and what our region's at. Just a reminder of the 5 safety performance targets that we, safety performance measures, we set targets for our number of fatalities per million miles traveled, serious injuries per million miles traveled, and then the number of non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries that's combined. Last year, like I said, we adopted our region-specific safety targets, and we used a goal of 0 for the fatality rates, number of fatalities and rates, and then a 25% reduction for the serious injury portion. We have some charts. Okay, so there's the safety targets for last year, and then the targets for this year. What we presented to the TAC is there's no changes to the methodology. The latest actual data that we have, which I'll show in a minute, is for fiscal year or calendar year 2023, I think. And since we don't have any actual data to compare to our previous targets, we're going to keep using the same methodology and the same forecast that we had last year, and we'll probably do that for at least next year and maybe the year after, to give us a few years of looking at the same forecast line for all of these targets, and then reevaluate after a couple of years. We have some actual data to compare for 24, 25, and maybe 26. Here's the historical numbers. Fatalities for 23 were up a little bit, but serious injuries were down some, and then non-motorized was also up a bit from 2022.
When do you typically get the numbers like for this year?
I believe the data for the previous year is released around June. That's when it's validated. So June of 6 months from now, we should have the numbers for 2024. And we can share an update if the board would like it in the summer once we have those numbers.
Do we not keep a tally locally?
We get our data through Chris, and they do update daily, and we could go in, but it's a little staff time intensive to be checking every week. It's for our reporting, it's easier if we wait till it's all validated and rather than go in once a month or once a week.
The only reason I ask is local municipalities, and you kind of track that kind of stuff generally. Yeah. It's not a lot of numbers, and it's like managing your budget on 2 years ago tax returns.
Yeah,
it doesn't help you change your budget for next week. So it's a timeliness. I think 6 months. I mean, we're gonna have targets and then have 6 months lag. And especially when we're only looking at a 4 or 5 year goal, or I don't know, whatever the number to 0.
Yeah.
So just 2050.
I think we forecasted through, it was a 5-year forecast, 23 to 27 or 24 to 27 maybe.
Yeah, well, I think we're breaking it up, but yeah.
Yeah.
It just, you're.
Yeah, I hear you saying. I think from a data side of things, that data that is released in June is validated data, and it's a standard set versus the data that comes in. Not that that's unimportant, but for our targets, it's easier to say, hey, this is validated data from a single source that's standardized over time. And I know everyone here cares about safety. We don't want anyone to die or be seriously injured. And the reality is we have an issue. I think there's a short-term time frame, but there's also a long range. We want those rates to be going down. And looking at day to day and seeing it doesn't really it's different. It's a different time horizon that I think we're looking at. And last year we discussed is there any punitive measures if we don't meet these targets, and there isn't. Staff's view is, since we're just starting on this journey and having local targets, it's better to give it a little bit of time before reevaluating the methodology.
I understand that from a data perspective, but from a human life perspective, it would be good to know that right now it's 38 or 95 with an asterisk, right? These are just rough numbers that we pulled together. We call the local, we call Parker Heights. These. It seems like an email that could go out and we can get a number. I think it's all this, we're on track. Yeah, I mean, just are we in the neighborhood? Yeah, I mean, it gives us 6 months to think about it instead of, we'll see the numbers in June and then we'll react in 6 months and we got a 1 year lag.
I'm more concerned with what do we do with the numbers? I appreciate the state wanting us to get them down to zero by 2050, and that's great, but here locally, we take these numbers as we get them, can we publicize these numbers and perhaps put them on a commercial, or now I guess you gotta optimize it on Facebook or whatever, get people to actually see it, to show that, hey, we're trying to get down to zero by 2050, but we're at 64 now, and this year now, so far, 6 months of the year, we've already busted the number, so that people, puts it in people's face to actually say, people are dying, and they're dying at a higher rate than they were before. Y'all gotta slow down, y'all gotta pay attention, y'all gotta get off your phones, and how do we use that data to influence people's driving habits? Because that's where the fatalities come from. I mean, we don't have unsafe roads, generally speaking. People are falling off the road into a hole and dying. They're not paying attention and they're T-boning somebody at an intersection.
I think, and this is just our experience, at least locally, is a lot of the fatalities and serious accidents have to do typically with construction and poor signage, or we're not notifying people soon enough, and that we see, Route 121 construction is an example. And I-35, I-14 intersection without really marking. Those are the things that you could go to root cause and do lead measures. And it's just, not that we can solve it here, but if we don't really look at it for 6 months, then we're just recording numbers, we're not having goals.
One of the things we have to put together dashboards. And I'm a quarter sharer, you can show us where that is on the website. Because you can look at that, we can include that in you have that air quality sheet, we can say, hey, latest crystal number.
I mean, it's
with an asterisk, I like the idea.
It's not
I look at it all the time.
Not all of us have, or know how to access that.
Well, that's what I'm saying, let's bring it. You don't necessarily need to do the down to the intersection crash analysis, but somebody should be. We talked about this in TAC. It's great to have that declining. Let's make zero the goal. You and I have argued about this in the past. Whether zero is a realistic goal is almost beside the point. What are we doing to identify the areas with the greatest hazard? And I can name you a couple of intersections in Temple, you named one in Belton. Doesn't mean that within the next month there's going to be a fatality there. Doesn't mean in the next 6 months there'll be a fatality there. But probably within the next year, there's a good chance that someone's going to die there. And then we go back either to TxDOT or the city or whoever, what are we doing about it? And we've done that with the SS4A grant. We need to keep doing that, even when that grant money runs out. Y'all got money in special studies. There's one to work on. Just keep doing that targeted hotspot analysis. And you can look up those factors. You can look at, is there work zone involved? Was it distracted driving? Was it speeding? Those speeding and distracted driving tend to be the biggest failure to yield of all the different ways you can get in someone else's way. What the hard part that I won't say I struggle with, but this organization, we're a project organization. We're not an education per se. Anita does a great job. There's other agencies that do the education piece, TxDOT with the industry and zero. There you go, thank you. Law enforcement's part of it. Automotive engineering. When I grew up, you didn't even have to wear seatbelts. Now we have airbags coming at you from every different direction. You have crumple zones. Everything, when I was a kid, you had steel everywhere. Glass that would shatter. So there's automotive engineering that's making vehicles safer. So those are all part of that big wheel. But our part is look at the areas where a project makes sense. We only have, a few $1 billion. We should make every penny count, right? Let's figure out where our money's best spent. Cross your fingers and hope and I know Keith told me hope is not in any RV doctrinal manual. But
Well,
hope that what we're doing brings that line down.
And back to the policy question, I don't know the last time that when we were looking at, should we put this project over this project, that we even considered that this is a more dangerous versus this is a higher priority.
No,
I'm just saying here, I'm not saying there, I'm just saying.
Something I want to add to this too, between the bigger data that we're collecting, whether it's 6 months or monthly or whatever, what you're asking for, what we do in the district, every single fatality in the district gets reviewed. We have a meeting, we bring in first responders, we have our design engineers there, we have our local maintenance people there, our local construction people. We review every single incident for cause, and is there anything that the roadway caused, or is there anything that contributed so that we can look for trends of things?
Right.
Our number one cause of fatalities in this district, which is the Waco district, 8 counties, not just Gulf County, is single driver crashes run off the road on rural roadways, not on the interstate, not in town, on rural roadways. Usually they're at night. Now, if the person is intoxicated, do we just write it off? Oh, he's drunk? No. We go and we look at the roadway, we take pictures, we make sure that there's not a head drop off, that there's not a pothole, that there's good illumination. And we treat some of those, and this is reactively, we treat some of those, spot by spot. But we're looking for those longer term trends that come with bigger data. And then we roll those into the projects. We have a saying in TxDOT, every project is a safety project. We include safety considerations in every single project that we do. And there is anecdotal viewpoints, because we get complaints all the time. There's so many people who died at this intersection. We go back and look, and nobody's died at the intersection. Happens all the time. And a lot of that gets promulgated through social media and things like that, where nobody, just because there was a bad accident, doesn't mean somebody died, but people assume that they did. So the data is important in a big way. But we review every single one. We have a meeting, we'll have 30, 40 people in that meeting. And you're right, we can publish it. Anybody on this board is always welcome to come up to our district office to have input to those things. So I'd be more than happy to do that.
Yeah, if I can add, go ahead, Mayor.
I just want to add there's another variable, you talking about trends or data. 2025 coming around now with the vehicle inspections. Is that something we're going to start tracking? Is that based on our forecast of, accidents now? If we're not going to be inspecting vehicles, that's another thing you're going to have to look at now. You don't know what the condition of that vehicle is driving around.
An example of these fatality reviews, just on I-14 in Killeen, just did some, we had pedestrian fatalities. Most of those occur in underserved communities where people want to cross the interstate to get to, food, Walmart, or things like that. They don't have a vehicle. So we put up pedestrian barriers. They need another mode of transportation to get across there, but we don't want to cross the interstate. We just started a project now on 195 to do the same thing, because that's a hot spot for pedestrian fatalities, people crossing the road. In Waco on I-35, and we put median barriers so people can't get over the median. And while they might try once, they'll only try once, they won't come back every week and jump over that median barrier.
Sometimes they try once and that's the final.
Yeah. So, we do treat those kind of things, and we look at individually as well as conglomerate.
And I think that's the kind of trend and historical analysis that I know I've tried to do, and then I'm asking for staff to do the same.
Yeah, if I would bring this back a little, Kelly, did you want to add?
Yeah, I wanted to add that at the statewide level, it's a huge focus on safety. We actually have a commission task force that is just focused on safety. And we have statewide dashboards on, that slice and dice data statewide, bit by districts, by corridors. It looks at, the causes of the crashes and the fatalities, et cetera. And I could tell you the biggest cause of fatalities in the state today, speeding is number one. And then the other one, which is surprising, people are wearing seatbelts, is the other one. So you talk about work zones, people are speeding in work zones. That's part of the problem. You know, they're not driving to posted speed limits, but they're also not driving to conditions. So that's a huge part of really when you see.
Are you saying accidents or are you saying accidents or fatalities?
Both. Pretty much both. But the single cause of fatalities is
Speeding and, that's
yeah,
the
you
force.
know, that's the number one. And of course, distracted driving of all forms. But again, like Stan mentioned, there's a lot of focus. A few years ago, Commission dedicated like $600 million that was given to the districts to address safety. So there's a lot of things going on at the statewide level to really address safety. And I think, you know, what the MPOs are doing too is really focusing on that. And the question I had was, did you guys develop your safety plan? Remember a while back, there was a discussion for the MPOs to develop
No, we
their
didn't.
safety plan.
We did not use the money for the safety plan because we have a SS4A grant that we're doing.
Oh,
and
okay.
We're coming to completion with that.
Okay, yeah, because that is really helpful that you can, you know, provide that to Stan and then he can roll that at the statewide level.
I would just say for this item, looking at the targets, and Mary Lee, I hear you, we could look into some more actual reporting just to share that information. I think there's a lot of different facets with safety, and there's addressing safety, and there's looking at the data. And for this, we don't want to be chasing numbers and saying.
No, that's exactly, I mean, I want to look at it is at the end of the year, like.
Yeah, and we can do some more reporting, but we're not trying to chase numbers here. We talked about it as staff, and we're like, hey, we need to look at 4 years with the same forecast that we had. And at the end of that 4 years, look back and say, okay, for those 4 years, how did we actually do? And then say, is the methodology accurate, or do we need to adjust for our target setting purposes, which is supposed to inform some of the other activities we're doing and necessary planning and other stuff. So, yeah, well, we can look into the actual reporting though.
Appreciate it.
It would seem like, yeah, both are important. The trend, which is more what this is focused on, I think, but also a snapshot, you know, just to see what it looks like on a given year or day or whatever.
Yeah.
But the trend, I understand that. My question back to the charts that are in the packet. I don't know how to relate necessarily to the two charts on the historical crash data. Both up there, yeah. Well, it's just one. But look, for example, number of fatalities, you know, 23, 64. And the target, fatalities per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, 1.38. I don't know how to relate those two.
So this is historical data, which is just the raw numbers. Those per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, that's a rate. So we have a.
I know, but is that 64 a good rate or a bad rate compared to that target?
It's just it's a math. I mean,
64 is the total number of fatalities. The 1.38 is the fatalities per mile. So the example you were given, where the end goes, this is a whole intersection. Somebody died last year. There's too many deaths. Okay, there was one fatality, 3 serious injuries. What was the traffic count? 30,000 cars went through that intersection today. Do the math. It's not that hazardous versus an area that has maybe 200 daily trips and there's 10 fatalities. That's a huge crash rate. So that's what that 1.38 is getting at. So not just looking at the raw numbers, but it's a probability.
So the 1.38 number is for the MPO?
It's so the target number of traffic fatalities for 25 is 54, and we have calculated, and we should probably show that, so I calculated that how many million vehicle miles are traveled in the region, and it's 54 divided by that number, by 100 million, equals 1.38. And we don't show the historical numbers, but that's something that we should show in this chart, so we can see over time, you know, as more, that rate should be going down too, as there's less crashes and as there's more vehicle miles traveled.
Can you remind me, when you get the VMT, is that state roads, or is it all state and local?
I believe it's all.
Oh, it's all.
I believe we've got all, yeah. Sorry, these charts are a little small. Here's the charts that we use. They're the same from last time. You can see based on the forecast where we're headed, and the dotted line is where we want to go. Same for serious injuries. This is a reduction in where we're headed, so that's why it's not going down. There's a lot more serious injuries than fatalities. And then for the non-motorized, it's a combination, and so.
The dash is where you want to go, not the dot.
The black dashed, the red dashed is the forecast based on the trend from the solid blue line. This is just for discussion today. We'll wanted to get some feedback, wanted to share where we're at before we.
So speaking of that last graph, it shows a dash line in 2023. Where are we?
Yes, because that's what I was saying, the last time we did this a year ago, we didn't have 2023 data. The last actual numbers we had were 2022, so we did a forecast from 2022, and we're not going back and adjusting to include the 2023 numbers, or we decided not to do that, and just look at, okay.
But don't you want to put a dot somewhere that it's either below the black, above the red, in between?
Well, for 2023, we had adopted the statewide target, so it's.
I'm just talking about this graph.
Actual number.
The actual number, if it's 54, which I think, was that the number 54?
That was for 2025, and
For target.
for 2023, we hadn't done region-wide numbers, and we had done statewide numbers, so the dot would be way off the chart, because the statewide is like in the thousands. And
No, I'm just saying,
You're saying 23, we have actual.
we should have the numbers for
Yeah,
23. They should have a dot, like wherever the dot is. It's like,
So we got actual numbers, right?
Yeah,
So why can't there be a dot up here, is what he's asking.
2023 is actual number.
yeah, we can,
that would be really good, because having goals with no measurement is not having goals.
Yeah.
It's having dreams.
They're just talking about using the actual data that we have, not the targets that we adopted, federal or state.
we can do that.
That'd be good. Because if they're not targets, then we don't need to track. If they are targets, we need to track.
Well, and the dot for fatalities is going to be between the two lines.
We would hope.
Right? No, we'll hope. I mean,
It is.
It is.
Yeah.
Oh, it is.
It is. If the 64 is the fatalities for 2023.
Here's the.
It's not motorized, he was showing.
Well, look at it one. I still think it's still between the two lines. Yeah. We didn't make.
We'll add that for next month, we'll have that in there. We'll make sure these charts are easier to read too.
And it'd be the same on serious injuries. It'd be a dot between the two.
Correct. Yeah, and serious injuries is lower, so it'll be farther down.
Well, but it'll be between the green on paper, it'll be between the red and green, looks like.
But it could be below the green. I'm just saying it could. I don't
It'll be
know.
below, because 223.
You're right.
You're right.
If it's below, why are we setting a target that's higher?
Well, that's just, it's a control. Like, we want it to go to zero, as long as we can get, nothing says that, hey, if we get to zero before that time, then win. Right? It's not like, oh, let's go get a couple of people run over so we can hit our goal. That's why I want our goal, that's why we should have a goal of zero.
The point is that it's a trend, not just an anomaly. We shouldn't necessarily place a target that's higher than what we're actually performing.
Correct, but we'll make that adjustment over a 3.5 year period.
Yes, correct.
One dot on the chart.
It's not a trend.
That's not a trend.
That's right.
Well, and if you can go back to that graph, is what you see, is that blue line does bounce around. The historic line it fluctuates a lot. So it's not, even doing a forecast, I wouldn't take that bet to Vegas per se, you know? But you give me an idea where we do have, I can go on Chris right now and run a query for the MPO boundary and come up with a number. Now, like James said, it may not be the validated number. It's okay, put an asterisk by it, but show that dot. Maybe it's not part of the line for the trend, but the unvalidated data shows that we're below the forecast, we're above the forecast. at least give us an indication. And then once we get that validated data, then we revise, and then the 18, 19, 20, 19, 20, then it's a sliding scale. But at least we're keeping tabs on, if the number's 58 for 2024, once they finalize the crash investigation, maybe that person that was in the ICU for a few weeks finally passes away, and that was the one that happened in Temple that I looked at. The initial report marked him as a serious injury. Eventually, the victim died. So they went back and they marked that crash as a fatality. So if it's 58 right now, once all that investigation is done, it's probably not going to move by but a couple single digits. So at least show us that ballpark figure. That seems reasonable.
So staff will put validated dates as dots on there. And any additional data you might get that's not truly validated, you might still put a dot on there, but highlighted is not valid.
Yeah, we can look at what the 24 numbers are and share that at the next meeting. Here's the schedule. We have to adopt these targets by no later than February 26th. So we'll have that resolution for next month.
All right. Anything else? Move on to item number 10, discussion item, and we'll continue the James McGill show here with the KTMPO TIP and MTP program funding and project readiness.
We gave an update to the TAC on project readiness. I know this is something that TxDOT and MPO staff talk about a lot. I don't think we'd shared this, but in October, TxDOT had been meeting with all the MPOs about how can we spend funds more quickly. They have all of us have a interest in getting money out the door, getting projects constructed. They did institute a legislative change. They're looking at 2 specific funding categories, 5 and 7. Which are 5 is the CMAQ funds for air quality that we don't receive, 7 is the SCDMM funds, and there were some large carryover balances statewide, and to encourage spending those and make sure that TxDOT can spend those if the MPOs are unable to, they institute a rule change that any unspent carry funds above 200% could be transferred from category 7 to category 2, I believe. Cat 11. The goal isn't to be punitive, and they're working with all the MPOs, but they are sending regular reports and checking our carryover balances and how we're spending them. If you just look at fiscal year 25, I don't know if I have, here it is. Our carryover balance is at 314%, but if you look at our entire TIP window through 2028, we're expected to spend 95% of our funds. We're pretty backloaded right now. There's a lot of money in fiscal year 27 and 28. A lot of it's on Chaparral for category 7, which is going to be an important project, but takes a while. I think this is something we're going to be sharing more regularly, and as the MPO, our request is if there are projects that can be moved forward, we're trying to work with Victor and his team at TxDOT, and they have to validate everything, but we have space to move. We have money currently to spend, and so, yeah.
So does that mean we need to spend that $8.14 million right away?
So we are not in danger of losing any funds over that 200% because TxDOT takes that whole of our 4-year program funding and they say, oh, look, they're over 314% this year. Next year, they're probably going to be over even more. But by 28, they've spent 95% of everything. So they see that we have a plan to use it. What has happened is some MPOs have held them and held them and held them. And then the state is unfortunately sitting on a couple $2 billion. They can't, and it impacts them negatively fiscally when they go to ask for August redistribution or any of the regular allocations. As long as we can show that we have a plan to use it, we're good. That being said, if we have projects that we can move up forward that have an impact on that, we're happy to move them forward. We're happy to work with TxDOT to get those funds out the door, because any funds we can get out the door, the sooner we can get them out, that means the project's going to cost a lot less. Those funds are out of our hair, and we can work on programming the next set of funds. And then ultimately, if the opportunity comes, TxDOT may say, hey, do you have some additional funds or additional projects that need funds? And we can say yes. So any opportunity we have to move projects forward, I know oftentimes we're saying, hey, we need to push the let date a year, or we need to move this. If we can start moving those the other direction and saying, hey, we're ready, we can move these projects up, we can have those conversations to get those dollars out the door. But we're not in any danger of losing any funds.
Does being over that limit in any way impact for this legislative session, any monies that might be assigned to this MPO this session?
Because those are different funding category.
We had that discussion yesterday in our council workshop. We're trying to move things forward. We're waiting on environmental studies right now.
Right.
So those things you can't rush them. Once we get them, we're ready to move forward. It's just a matter of getting those things.
I think we run into that a lot with the environmental clearances.
Especially when you're talking federal money.
I just want to let everyone know where we're at and keep having conversations about moving projects forward and say that I think no one's going to be like, we don't want the projects to move forward, everyone wants to get them out as quickly as possible, so.
So did I hear, what I took from that was a 3-year window is okay? You said, I understand TxDOT said they're capped, so to speak.
Right, if we can demonstrate that we have.
We've got a plan.
If we have
3
something in
years,
place.
we're gonna get to that or below, we're good.
Correct.
If you go into 4, 5, 6, 7 years, whatever.
I think that's an additional conversation with TxDOT. You know, if we only get $8 million a year. If we have an $80 million project, we can't fund that even if we save for 3 years. We have to save for 10 years, so we can make that case to TxDOT. Not that we would ever do that. Save all of our money for 10 years and have a lot of boring meetings probably, but.
And even though they see it, they still are encouraging us to move projects forward if we can. If you like, we have, here's the current category funding and the projects that we have funded. This is all in your packet. Like any discussion, happy to pause and look at those.
In terms of, you mentioned the bigger metro areas that have money that they're sitting on, for whatever reason. I guess one thing that Victor is nodding his head, we've tried to position ourselves to get I-14 and I-35 expansion ready. And if other cities aren't ready to spend the money, this region is. I know Waco District wants to. I think that bears repeating. We'll take their percentage, is what I'm saying.
That's all I have. Unless there's any discussion.
Any other questions? All right, let's move to item number 11, discussion item regarding an update on the Safe Streets and Roads for All SS4A grant. Uryan.
All right, we are nearing the end of this joint SS4A grant. I believe next month we should be receiving our final draft from Killeen-Temple Consultants. Once we receive that and review it, we'll be sharing that with everybody. I believe there may be a couple more updates we'll get after that, but they'll be minor. But we'll share those updates additionally to the plan as we get them. As you'll see on the screen, we've got our total spend, our total in-kind match, what we've logged, or the required match. It looks like we're a little low. And then in-kind logged and in-kind dollars with signed forms. Those two numbers are very important. That $144,000 is what we have logged for all of the in-kind that's been reported. Without those signed forms, we're missing $100,000 of in-kind contributions. So if you have forms that are outstanding that have been sent by Callie, Joanna, anybody, please get those signed and submitted, because our admin folks can't submit those as in-kind dollars until we have those forms, those signed forms from everybody. So if you see forms come through and you question they'll usually be via DocuSign. If you question their validity, please reach out to staff. But we are sending that information out, and we do need those forms. If we don't get the forms, then we're gonna have to show up at the council meeting with our hat in our hand, which we shouldn't have to do for the cash match, because we have the in-kind. We just need the signatures on the forms for people saying, yeah, we did talk about that at the city council meeting. I was there. I did. So they're very direct. If you have questions about them, please reach out. Staff are happy to help or explain any of the in-kind documentation you may receive.
So I think everything that has come to me in the email, I've DocuSign and sent back, but what if I've missed one? Do we all need to, I want us all calling Callie and see if we've got some or not. Is there a list that you need that we can work with?
If you sign what's been sent to you, then you're good. And if there's anything additional, we'll send it out.
Sorry, send it out again.
And I know we send these out, then they go to your spam box. You may be like, what are you talking about? You've never asked me for a signature. I get it. We just have to kind of get this wrapped up. If you haven't seen anything, please reach out. But yes, I believe Callie and Joanna possibly have a way to track who has been sent something and signatures haven't.
If you're missing the judge's signature, send it to me and I'll stay home.
Please.
Okay, thank you. Make sure you check email, comes from Callie, sign it and send it back, please. Anything else on that one, sir?
I don't have anything.
Well then, discussion item regarding public input received through December 2024. We've got some of that, I believe. Anita?
Thank you so very much. The actual public comment log is in your packet. Since October the 6th, we've received 4 public comments. And on the screen up above, I wanted to highlight the 2024 public comment survey responses and meetings. We received 13 individual comments that were not related to any particular public meeting. We've received, for the public engagement plan, a total of 74 public comments. For the 2050 MTP, 258 public comments. For the FY 25-28 and 2050 MTP, 59. And then the FY 25-28 TIP 3 and the FY 23-26 TIP and MTP 2045, we received 2 public comments, or we had 2 public meetings with 1 comment between those meetings. So we just wanted to report on the activity inside of our region for the past year regarding public comments and meetings. And if you have any questions specifically about the comments inside of your packet, feel free. And also earlier when we had a graph up there for the BPAC, now the ATAC committee. I didn't add that one back in, but that's really important to our work because those are, I call them volunteers. That's the public. They're not elected officials. They're not on staff with any entities. They care about what's happening with our active transportation, and so they attend these meetings. And so originally, I think at the last meeting, we had 5 individuals that came. So we're going to start including those types of numbers because even though they're not making a comment, they're investing their time, talent, and expertise to show up publicly at our meetings. And so we want to give them a shout out.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Director's update, item number 13, you're right.
All right, finally, I get to say something. No,
You have 2 minutes.
As you'll see on the screen, we have our updated board meetings. We send those out with the packet every month. Veering off, I'll let Anita talk to the active transportation master plan development real quick, and then I'll finish my director's update. Did you have something?
Yes, I just want to share that Active Transportation Advisory Committee is starting to work on a active transportation master plan, and it's going to be regional and multi-jurisdictional trail networks that connect. Really, we're looking outside of our boundaries. We want connectors inside of our boundaries and inside of our region, but we're thinking about the Great Springs project that goes from San Antonio to Austin. We're thinking about the Red Line project that is over in Leander, Cedar Park area that's backing up to our boundary. So we're really thinking very detailed. And so you'll be hearing from us regarding your open space and parks. So we would like to include all those into that plan. And so we're going to start working on that and developing vision and casting goal settings for our first February 12th meeting. And we'd like to have this on the agenda for plan adoption by the policy board by September the 10th of 2025.
All right, thank you. So you'll see some additional information come out from Anita. Have a few more things for everybody. Safety funding, we were awarded $50,000 last year from TxDOT for safety funding. We couldn't use it for match for SS4A because it was also federal dollars. So the board elected to have us purchase the speed signs so we could track and gather data for that for planning purposes. We have received all of those signs. We're in the process of developing the policies and procedures to get those checked out to local jurisdictions where they're going to determine where they want to place them. We'll just have access to the data that shows what that looks like. The SS4A in-kind forms I've already spoke to. Our 50-year anniversary is this year, so hopefully we'll be able to get something stood up and have a luncheon or something. Working with the chair and vice chair on what that looks like. The AMPO policy, the National AMPO policy, the National AMPO board made appointments to interest groups and committee leadership January 1st. Anita was placed on the leadership team for Active Transportation Interest Group. I was reappointed as the vice chair for the policy committee. The biggest things that we'll be focusing on, the policy committee will be focusing on for this time around are the upcoming reauthorization bill. We have a lot of people working on what the reauthorization looks like, what MPOs are going to be asking for. We're working with the LOT Coalition, which is 4 different organizations similar to AMPO, NARC, regional transportation type organizations. We're trying to compile what all that ask looks like for the legislation as we go into reauthorization, which will happen actually in 2026. So we're still a long way out, but it's a long process to get through reauthorization. The last thing I have is yesterday, I was sent an email from AMPO, and I just want to bring everybody's attention to this. It probably will not affect KTMPO or our staff, but the Unleashing American Energy Executive Order had some provisions in it which call for a 90-day pause on disbursement of funds. That could create an issue when we reach out to TxDOT for our reimbursement if they are not able to get funding from federal highways. We don't know what that exactly is going to look like yet. It may not impact MPOs at all. This is all very new information. So AMPO is monitoring. They're sending out updates as they find more information out, and if there will be any type of impact to the MPOs, I just want to make everybody aware that this is a funding, this has the potential to impact the funding for the MPO directly. The uncertainty of operations, if there is a pause on funding, formula funding, I don't have any doubt in my mind that SICOG as our fiscal agent can carry that burden in the short term. But Michael Irvin's not in here to tell me I'm wrong, so that'll show him. But the other thing is there could be potential delays in any of the capital projects that are currently ongoing. So just so everybody's aware that was sent out yesterday. Those are things to keep your eyes open for. If I hear any additional information on how it may impact the MPO, I'm happy to share that. But it's all just too new at this time. With that, I think the last slide I have is the air quality readings, which were 44 and 42 parts per billion.
just add the PM2 and PM3, those are two other performance measure targets. We'll be having, there'll be resolutions for those next month. It's the bridge and pavement condition and reliability. TxDOT did send those numbers, and I don't have a slide for them, but we'll present on that next month. And then, I think we said something now, but TxDOT's 2025 Transportation Alternatives Project Call, the statewide one, was opened a couple weeks ago, and there's a lot of eligibility for that, and I know regions had success getting funds through that program before.
Okay, brings us to item 14, member comments. Anybody have anything else to say that isn't said already? Yes, sir.
I have one. This might be something we can put on the agenda next time, because it's probably a topic that probably warrants more than just a bullet. For homeless campers along the bridges along I-14, probably on I-35 as well, there's a huge health and safety concern when people set up camps underneath the bridges. They create fires under the bridges, create health hazards under the bridges. You know, we have addressed it in our city with ordinances, but we've had pushback from TxDOT on trying to come up with a plan of action to try to address this, either with signage or making the areas underneath those bridges not hospitable for them to set up a camp underneath there. But we need something that we can address so that way, you know, work with the local municipalities so that way, you know, we can address it in ordinances, but we need some sort of help where you allow us to put signage up or allow us to maybe put some sort of barrier or barricade underneath it that's not going to interfere with the structure of the bridge, but it makes it less of an inviting environment for people to set up. Because if you drive up underneath some of those, especially along I-14, there's like huge encampments underneath us, and we root them out, but it's, you know, it's just a matter of time before somebody sets a big fire underneath one of those or something like that, thinking they're trying to stay warm, which, you know, we want them to get in the shelters, but we don't want them to set up their camps underneath the bridges. So that's all I have for my public comment.
Anyone else?
I saw a guy catch a turkey underneath one of the bridges on 35. That was an amazing thing, this turkey running
Well,
around.
if they're catching turkeys, they're gonna try to fry one underneath it.
I think he had the good sense to take it home.
Any other comments? I'll call this meeting adjourned. We do have a workshop to follow if needed. Their staff, anyone else have need a workshop?